Welcome to Empowered Returns, a show that surfaces forward-thinking real estate advice that investors and developers need to help them invest smarter and build better.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Empowered Returns. I am your host, PT Vineburgh, founding partner here at CHARLESGATE, and I am very pleased to be joined by Troy Crema, the co-founder and CEO of Grata. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here, PT, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you all the way down from Toronto.
Just for this.
We're going international, everybody. We're going international now.
That's
so
it.
Psyched about it. So let's just jump right in. Tell us about Grata, right? Like how'd you get into it? What are you guys all about? What are you up to?
Yeah, 100%. Grata basically is a smart living operating system for apartment and condominiums, focusing on multi-residential across Canada and the US. The story of actually how we got into it is pretty funny, given our backgrounds. And basically what we specialize in doing is retrofitting existing assets really in multi-res apartment buildings with smart technology, and then bringing our digital experience for residents and property managers to ultimately enhance the living experience in buildings, drive operational efficiencies, save property managers and asset owners a ton on just key savings and access, but at the end of the day also drive revenue and NOI at the end of the day. And where it all started was kind of interesting and funny. I was working after I was done playing hockey, of course, which is you and I have a mutual
love of hockey. You're there. Way better hockey player, but that's all right.
I don't know about that. Well, you're a goalie. We should maybe test this after. We can check it out.
Yeah. We got a little shooting gallery in the back. We'll do it.
All right, done. Slap on the pads.
Yep.
All right, money.
All right.
So I was done there. Fortunately, I played for Dartmouth College for 4 years. Went actually play professionally for the Rochester Americans for a bit.
Nice.
Long story short, got traded like 4 times in 2 weeks, and I was driving all around the USA, and basically said maybe hockey isn't for me anymore. And then ultimately did the most cliche Ivy League thing you can do, go work in New York City. And funny enough, that's kind of where Grata started. I was working in New York. Ken, who's also my co-founder, who happens to be my father as well. So
okay.
That's an interesting one too.
Yeah, we'll get into that dynamic a little later.
Well, that's how Grata actually started. So he was living in Florida, and we were chopping rent in a multi-res apartment building in Toronto. And funny enough, it was just before COVID when it was starting, and we used to go back and forth, and we were in Toronto at the time, not in Toronto at the time specifically. And what we realized was COVID hit, borders got shut down.
Yeah, you never got out of Toronto.
Well, we were stuck. We were stuck together for 6 months, together living in a multi-residential apartment building, and living with my dad was an experience in and of itself, I would say. But given our backgrounds, and he's a 4-time successful entrepreneur, technology building companies, I was starting out, and I was like, okay, well, what we realized very quickly, just as a resident in these apartment buildings, was that the digital experience or technology in them was non-existent. And COVID, it got amplified because couldn't get a hold of a PM, couldn't walk downstairs, no superintendents or anyone was actually on the ground floor.
Interesting.
And so there was no way of getting a hold of a CHARLESGATE, for example, right? Managing a building at the time. Not you guys specifically.
Everyone needs a CHARLESGATE.
We'll go into that one too. We love these guys. But what we realized was that, what if we could create essentially an app, right, for residents? Just a simple idea. Create an app for residents that people would use every single day. And over the last now 2.5 years since that occurrence, basically we studied and analyzed across apartment living and multi-res and condo buildings now, obviously with you guys. What is the one thing in common that people do, whether it's residents, managers, superintendents, vendors, every day in these buildings? And that's they come in the buildings and they come out of the buildings. And that's where we started to go down the path of looking at smart technology, how it relates to it, because my background was actually in mobile app experiences when I was working in New York, dealing a lot with our companies on how can I get PT to download an app and then keep it on your phone and then keep coming back to it every day like a trigger. And the trigger for us was ultimately creating something called the digital key. And the digital key is kind of our secret sauce when it comes to Grata. We can go into essentially your condo or apartment building, put a smart lock on every single apartment unit door, integrate to your existing front intercom, common access systems, consolidate it all into one digital key experience that all sits within the Grata app.
Yeah.
And for residents, for property managers, now doubling as a platform for vendors, leasing agents, and everyone. And then we said, why stop there? Now that we have PT downloaded the app, he's using it every day, loves its experience, can open up any door that he needs to in his building. Let's build all the other features that you would need for your apartment living experience. Booking amenities, work requests, pay your rent, everything. And so finally, what Grata is now is a smart living operating system or a super app a one-stop shop for everything you need for your apartment or condo living experience.
Yeah, so I want to dig a little deeper on that because that was when we initially got introduced. It's like, look, there's a lot of, Wi-Fi enabled access systems, right? I mean, but what intrigued me and what we found since our first implementation at Cadence is it's a lot more than that. And that's sort of, at least to me, what, attracted us to partner with you guys and what makes you different, but kind of talk a little bit about the different elements. So you use the term super app. So besides, just the access being the foundation, like what other things are you doing with the app and how is that enhancing people's life? How is that enhancing people's bottom line from an ownership or an ease of operation from our standpoint in the management seat?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the great thing to answer your question is since we've created an operating system, we're always innovating new features as we keep growing because we're a technology company. But to start, the basic necessity features on top of that digital key was really the work request flow that we have in the app. We've seen this across apartment living specifically. That's the number one expense line usually from an NOI perspective is maintenance, right? And so that work request flow where the resident can essentially submit a work request through the app, that will then get triggered over to the property manager, and they can actually open up an instant messaging chat, like customer support chat, to deal with a work request. And then actually the manager has the ability to then now add a vendor to procure, to get them out to site and actually give access to that unit, all bringing in the smart tech component to it. We're finding that feature alone is saving thousands of dollars for property managers and asset owners across their buildings because we actually have some marrying that with smart tech in a one-stop shop interface. You can now hold your vendors accountable to make sure that ultimately the end customer is being tended to, which is the resident. The manager can actually manage everything and see everything. You as a senior leadership can make sure that all the work requests are getting tended to in a sufficient manner through the admin portal. But also we can timestamp doors and access points to know when PT shows up on site to fix everything.
42 minutes for someone to come over and deal with.
But I'm the vendor. I'm Troy the vendor, and I'm billing you out at 4 hours.
Right. There you go. So I see when you came in, when you came in, when you left, and it was only 90 minutes, and I get a bill for 3 hours. I'm like, dude.
And I can see the backlog on the resident feedback. Oh, wait, you actually didn't finish the job. Why are you billing me for a full time's work? So it really finally for that work request flow feature alone, and we can go into all the other ones. It completed the process, and we're super excited about that. We're actually looking at adding even one step further, adding a PO system to that too, where you guys can even send out POs and purchase orders through it. And finally complete the whole process that all then integrates with your AppFolio.
I remember when in our initial conversation, my big concern was, well, like we've got this software we're using, AppFolio, which is, one of the major ones, right? You've got Yardi, you've got AppFolio,
Grata, RealPage, MRI, right?
And you guys integrate with those.
All of them, yeah. So it's super exciting. We integrate two-way syncs with a majority of them. I would say it's funny in this world, you're always, as you said, finding a new cloud-based property management system or legacy system that people are using. So we have to stay up to date. That being said, we're now seeing our platform really being that interface that managers use every single day, given that everything they need is there. And this back-end system is simply just logging all the data to make sure everything fits within that current back-end. And so what we created here with Grata, because we can bring a great digital experience regardless on whether it's one feature, 2, 3, 4, 5, or all of them on day one. But we didn't want to lose business because you guys have a system in place. They're using work request flow, booking amenities, and on day one, we can bring the digital key. We can also bring a communication platform if you need that, and really have more of an a la carte type of menu where we can get our foot in the door, pun intended, and then start to go. And just all those features alone, the digital key is a true enhancement because just in lost keys that happen every single time.
Lockouts,
even for you guys as well, like superintendents, people that are carrying that master key. To rekey a mechanical lock, it can cost anywhere from $200 to $300 in parts, labor, everything, all in. It can even go upwards as $500 if you have a mortise type of lock, right? And so we go in there, we essentially create a digital master key for you, and everything is managed through an app-based cloud platform where if you have someone that walks out and doesn't like PT, because it happens, right?
Rarely.
Yeah,
but
essentially you can click turn off access through the back-end platform, the admin, and you mitigate the risk of that unforeseen CapEx investment into your building.
Gotcha. So talk a little bit about without, I don't want to go into every single element of the software and because it's robust and it's awesome. But like what are a few of the other kind of highlights? So you've got access, you got work orders, I think
Payments are in there now. So that's as of today, rent payments, marketplace payments, which is super cool. We also now have booking of amenities. Is a big one for us.
Yeah, that's great.
We've also incorporated not just amenities, but in the bookings flow.
Yeah.
There's a whole parking management now system too. So parking is a huge issue in multifamily, and this is all like most of the majority OS. We created in-house dollar of our IP.
Yeah.
But this is a cool thing about us. We're always looking for different software and hardware partners to incorporate into the one-stop shop app. So now we have a thermostat play as well with Ecobee and a couple other partners. We've looked at on integrations.
Yeah.
Water and leak prevention is a huge thing.
That's
in
a big one for sure.
Now we censors a couple other partners that, again, you want to have it sit from a management point of view in a one-stop shop interface, but why not be putting in those type of hardware so you can have those types of immediate cost savings and prevent
and a good amount of our audience is obviously developers and owner operators, and if they're smart they hire great managers like CHARLESGATE. But talk about some of like Grata Plus and some of like the rev share opportunities, and then also maybe that's a good segue to talk a little bit about any core differences for an apartment complex versus a condominium home ownership.
So the biggest thing that we found, and it's funny, Ken and I's background was in marketing, sales, SaaS. We were not real estate people. We just rely on great people like you to tell us how it is and build technology off of it. But biggest thing that asset owners didn't capitalize on was ultimately they have a captive market of people for a certain period of time that are living in their experience, calling it their home. And what we looked at in this building at 6 months trap with Ken, the recycling bin. They basically went to their direct mailbox, took the flyer out, maybe looked at it, unless it was like a sick Jimmy John's like sub flyer, and then you're gonna take that all the way, right?
Yeah.
And the younger,
you get me maybe a steak and cheese will get a second look, but
maybe. But if it's not steak and cheese, you take that and you throw it out and you put it right in the recycling bin. And it was COVID, it was overflowing because direct mail was actually the number one channel for retailers, big channel retailers like Walmart, all these guys to get to these people. And so we went to all the asset owners that we knew in Toronto at the time, which is now consistent across North America. And we said, hey, the flyers hitting your recycling bin every day. You guys capture any of that revenue? Do you guys actually does a Canada Post or does a US Postal pay you guys a share of that? And the answer is no, right? And so we said, well, on my background and Ken's background, I was like, well, what if we create an app that people would use every day? I know geographically where the building is domiciled. I know the macro demographic profile, whether it's student living, young professionals, mixed, condo living. And I know basically I now can create a marketplace within the Grata app called Grata Plus, where major brands now like Wayfair, which is super
DoorDash
exciting.
was a big one.
DoorDash,
right? So
and a couple other partners will pay Grata, aka the asset owner, for the digital real estate that we've created within multifamily apartment real estate. And then we give back a percentage of that to the owner.
Yeah.
Right. And our backgrounds is if you have a daily active engaged resident or user, and you know the address of that person and you know the macro demographic of that person, that's like marketing gold.
Right.
Like it's not going to get any better than that. Right. And so our partners nationally have jumped on this, and it's been great.
And look, most of these, especially the newer buildings or certain markets like a Toronto or a Boston or San Fran or New York, they're paying big rent, right? Because they're super expensive markets. So therefore, they've got the, financial ability to drop $80 on DoorDash for dinner.
So it's interesting though, right? So multi-res apartment living specifically, which differs than condos. Condos, they got that budget, right? The people in there, you're buying a condo, they can spend that disposable income.
Yeah.
The people that actually big brands want to get to are young, easy customer acquisition costs, skew younger traditionally. It's actually people in apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And so the crazy thing about this, because again, we grew up in to use your point, piggyback off of that, Toronto, which is a rent-controlled market, like it is for a lot of different other markets. Probably the worst place ever to start a prop tech company. I do not recommend it.
Yeah, that's why you're sitting here in Boston, but that's all right.
That's why I had to come down and meet great innovative thinkers like PT. But it's so true, right? So how do you convince an asset owner to invest into a building where they have 100% occupancy, zero vacancy, and a wait list for 2 or 3 years?
Right.
You don't. Like how? So, well, what if I can gentrify your building with smart technology? What if I can bring this amazing digital app experience that's going to make your residents' lives better? That's going to enhance your operational efficiencies. It's going to save you thousands on key savings and access and all this. But hey, it will actually, by putting this system in, will self-liquidate your CapEx and OpEx investment into the building within the first 5-10 years. And from that thesis, we've gotten a lot of traction. In that platform, like Grata Plus, now we're getting into tenant insurance, a lot of other different necessity-based bundles that people can procure through the leasing process as well. So essentially with Grata, where we're going with the business, which is super exciting, is to essentially really be that one-stop shop resident interface, I would say, from lease to leave. And the ability for you to capitalize on monetary revenue streams through that platform is exciting, and a piece of the business that like I wake up, I don't sleep every day on, because it's just too the endless possibilities and where we go with it.
Awesome. So what, give me kind of a quick take on the landscape of prop tech right now, and what are some mistakes you see on guys that, you know, I'm sure you don't not get implementation on many of your pitches, but like, you know, guys who pass on it. And then I do think one thing worth, you know, just reiterating is one thing that was super cool to me was that you guys can come into a brand new building or an old building, right? And I think that that's, you know, a unique differentiator. And even the one that you came in with us, like it's a new building, but it had already...
You already had the locks on the doors.
Already had the locks on the doors, already had the butterfly system, and you just put a little box on the butterfly and boom, all of a sudden you're integrated.
Exactly.
Right? And that was kind of amazing. Obviously we do the hardware swap, but that was, I mean, you guys were in and out in a day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyways, talk a little bit about just sort of what you're seeing in the industry overall. And
so it's really interesting, right? I think prop tech has let down property managers and asset owners like you guys in the past. I think they really have. And our technology is great. It's unique. It's offline technology, so you don't need managed Wi-Fi systems. We can go into any asset anywhere. And we've proven that. We've gone to the 4-unit house in Toronto. That's considered a multi-residential apartment, all the way to the 500-unit skyscraper, 60 access control point, 4 to 5 different systems, garage, front door access, everything. No big deal. In LA, right? Yep. So like we've done it all. We've really tested ourselves across all these different markets, geographies to do that. And our tech checks out, and it's awesome. It's a great product, and I'm very proud of that. Where I think is one of the biggest differentiators between us and anyone else is our process. And you said implementation. You guys were in another day, right? Well, that's amazing to be able to manage the whole process from sale to customer support, where you only work with us. We have hardware partners on the lock side. We have hardware partners on the front door common and access side. We have hardware partners on the even common access side or front door intercom systems. We will procure all the hardware based on the experience that you guys want to market for that asset, who you want to lease up to. But we know that we can integrate into all of this. We're going to bring the best digital experience to control that interface. The crazy thing about this is from sale to customer support, hardware procurement, actually getting all of the vendors and locksmiths to come out and switch the locks and doing the vendor procurement, all the way to then training up the PMs, all the way to then getting your residents adopted on site for that day. We do that whole process, right? So we've been able to essentially manage everything from sale to customer support, which is why we've been able to stand up on record now 1,000 units in 5 days. And install 1,000 units in 5 days, but training up in those assets, 10 different property managers, superintendents, technicians, and onboarding and adopting is the key figure, 1,800 plus residents in that asset and complex. So the big thing with technology where we differ than anyone else is we take it all the way down to that person is going to adopt and they're going to use it and they're going to see the benefit in the platform. Obviously, we have an incentive through Grata Plus, but I've heard horror stories with prop tech companies that go, okay, PT, thanks for buying the software. We'll see you next year.
Right.
Good luck, right? And I think it's big on us that we have that, manage that whole process, but that are also there for the customer support side of the business to really be an extension of your property management firm at the end of the day.
Yeah. So what are the biggest challenges you see right now?
For us personally, or just in the market?
Just like in multifamily prop tech.
Biggest thing, people want to invest in putting technology into their buildings. That was a big thing for us. We've gone to a ton of conferences over the last year. People are really looking at how can I invest in resident experience, optimize my efficiencies, put it thermostats, everything. People do not want 10 to 15 apps that they're managing for a building. People don't want 10 to 15 products. And so people are really now, the challenges of that, not really for us, but the benefits for us is people finally want a one-stop shop, innovative prop tech partner for their firm and for their buildings. And I think we kind of hit the nail on the head by being able to create the OS and have multiple partners plug in, but then also be, I think, from an education perspective for the managers and asset owners, right? You guys don't have time to sit there and analyze 10 different thermostat companies and go, yeah, I think this is the best one, and do a whole case study. Maybe like institutions, obviously like a Brookfield or a Blackstone, they can do that because they can hire someone, have the internal resource to do it. But a lot of the maybe mid-market firms that don't have, obviously, those in-house budgets, we are now taking that on to really be, hey, we're going to deliver the best experience. Your managers are going to know how to manage everything. It's going to be great. But let us do the educational and the R&D on the hardware components or the software feature set components that we want to plug into this.
Yeah.
And you guys just focus on doing what you do best, and that's managing buildings and leasing up residents.
Yeah. So how big a piece of your business is that R&D, and how are you staying up to date on all the latest stuff, and how are you picking what partners to, either go after or, be receptive to when they reach out to you? Like, walk me through how that's working now and when you guys are scaling up the way you are. Yeah.
And I think, the great thing is, like, our tech team is domiciled in Toronto, which is awesome. We got about 15 to 20 now engineers on the staff, front end guys, back end guys, IoT hardware experts. You name it, they're there. Way smarter than me, that's for sure. Just a pretty face, as you know. But
good hair.
Thanks,
I don't know about the face, but good hair.
Yeah, I got some scars. But the cool thing about it is so how do we stay ahead of the curve? We qualify for SHRED up in Canada, which is a Canadian government program that basically rewards R&D research for tech companies in Canada. The reward is actually crazy. They give back anywhere from 35% of your consultant to 67% of your R&D spend on technology.
Wow.
Because we're innovating. And where our innovation is really focused on is how can we go into apartment living assets, specifically retrofits, which is 90% of the market, and keep these buildings up to date, without any infrastructure real changes, without any connectivity changes. We're rewiring the whole building, but making sure that we can keep it up to date through our offline tech on data and Bluetooth. And that type of technology, we've actually rewrote Bluetooth connectivity into all of our IoT hardware, where it actually decreases the latency and increases the distance.
Okay.
So it's fast. It actually beats online systems now, which is pretty wicked.
Wow.
And so that type of budget, obviously with the Canadian government's backing, we've obviously had a lot of success, and to keep investing millions and millions and millions every year into our technology and into our team. But then the cool thing on the sales side, and obviously being in the position I'm in, is I get a lot of inbounds on different companies, and I get to go to different conferences and see different types of prop tech. And we have such a good relationship with all of our asset owners and managers that they tell us what their pain points are, right? And one of the pain points was one of our student firms that we had up in Ottawa. They were only collecting 60% of the rent on day one, right? So I was like, well, what if we could also implement a flexible rental payments platform where people can actually pay 4 times a month or something like that, because I saw that at RecCon in New York, and I thought that could be a good value add. And I'll make the intro, but ultimately that company, that flexible rental payments company, will just sit within the Grata OS and the platform, right? So from a technology implementation perspective, we built it, and we can start looping all these partners. But from a, again, pain point perspective, I'm taking the education process off of the managers and the asset owners' backs, and we're giving you guys solutions versus you guys spending your own time and money and dollar on trying to find solutions.
Cool. So what U.S. markets are you guys in right now?
List grows, I think, every week now, which is super exciting. But Boston, obviously, now with you guys is huge. Now live in the Carolinas, so both Charlotte and ultimately Charleston as well, so north and south. Florida as well. We're now live in 4 different cities there.
A lot of golf markets.
Yeah, well, we did that for a reason, right, PT? 100%. Texas live. LA is a massive market for us now because of the rent controls there. Chicago now, assets going live. Seattle too. So. We've really found our niche in, again, that of the 31 now million multi-residential apartment units that are out there. Again, only 5% smart penetration out there on locks and access, and 27 million doors essentially are up for grabs, and majority of them are buildings built south of the year 2020. And we saw that as just such an opportunity to roll up our retrofits are not sexy by any means, right? Yeah. It's tough. We've done some really interesting assets, I would say, on that front.
What was the most memorable one that you had to do?
The most memorable, I think it's funny. I was getting texts today from our team that are out in Langford, BC right now, standing up a big asset with Fiera Real Estate and Devon Properties out there. but 200 plus units. And it's really cool to see their reaction, because every time they go back on site, like our process is amazing, but they get better. Like they banged out 200 units in like a day and a half.
Yep.
Like literally, like it was 36 hours from start to finish of install, everything procured. And then like now they're actually chilling there for a day in Langford, having some fun, and enjoying life. But that was the next building for us is always the most proud, I would say, because we're always just getting better at our process and our product and implementation and training up you guys and ultimately procuring residents. But one particular asset, which wasn't in maybe the nicest of neighborhoods up in Toronto, right? That was one we got tested on. It was a big project around like over 500 plus units. And the residents in there were not maybe the most tech savvy, I would say, in the world, and had a lot of families in the assets particularly. And we were at a point in our business where like we were trying to figure out what this process was. And 500 and plus units to us would have probably taken us at the time, I would say, anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. Like it would have been a grind at the time. And this building was a grind. But our team did it in 4 days, rolled up their sleeves, got it done. And I think that brought a lot of character and really kind of toughened our team up a little bit, to use a hockey analogy. Went through it, but we got through it and learned a lot from that process. And I think that was, I always talk to our ops team that now is showing off and texting me saying, hey, Troy, look at this, ha, ha, ha. But I think I always think of that as an inflection point in our business where we really rolled up our sleeves, got the job done, and we didn't leave site until essentially everyone was on board and happy and procured, which was super cool and exciting.
Cool. All right, we'll get ready to kind of wind it down here. But what's one thing that most people might disagree with you with about, as it pertains to prop tech and just your industry in general, like a point of view you have that maybe is against the grain?
Yeah, I think my firm belief across every single apartment building is technology can be implemented, it can be used, and smart tech can go to any property. Like I am a very firm proponent that you can put locks on your doors, you can figure out entry access systems, you can figure that all out. And we've taken a lot of time to basically R&D and procure that and basically solve those problems for our partners. We still have just a lot of asset owners that are out there that don't want to invest back in their buildings, specifically up in Canada, again, mostly rent-controlled markets in particular. And I don't blame them because, again, prop tech, when you hear that, it's new, it's different types. And traditionally, prop tech has not supported the customer, which is the customer.
Yeah, and my building was built in 1920, and what do I need that for?
100%. And I'm Phil, but like they actually haven't taken it all the way to that adoption and training and onboarding. And I think we're the company that's done it on retrofits, which traditionally everyone's tried to stay away, to be honest. And we've kind of rolled up our sleeves, gone in there and made it work. And not just made it work, I've done an absolutely bang up fantastic job, but we're always looking at getting better and innovating and constantly making our process even more bulletproof. And I would say to all those asset owners and managers that don't want to put technology in their building, just give Grata a call.
There you go. All right. So like I said, we'll kind of get ready to wrap it up here, but just tell us a little bit about, talk a little bit more about you personally, but tell us about the podcast. Stay hot. Is it as good as Empowered Returns?
No. It's definitely not. You guys got the whole stuff. Caleb is the guy.
Caleb is the man.
I might poach Caleb now. You know that. Like
he's coming. Try. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
He doesn't speak Canadian.
He doesn't speak Canadian. No. But the name is funny. Yeah. So Stay Hot actually came from. I think it was actually a chirp at my Dartmouth days. But during my senior year at Dartmouth, I was just having a pretty good year. And was kind of, I think it was on like a 2 or 3 game goal streak or point streak. And a couple of guys on our team was like, stay hot, Crem, stay hot before ever we go out to the game. And funny enough, I don't know, I was the journey around how that all stayed, that's where the name came from. But why I started Stay Hot around now 2 years ago was I was kind of going through it as an entrepreneur. Like when we were starting this company, like it's so hard.
Right.
Like it's really hard. I love Grata because not just because of the business growth, but every day I get to wake up and work on me because I'm working on the company, which I thought was like so cool. But it took a lot for me personally that I had to go through to get myself up to be able to wake up every day and keep grinding and keep having that mentality that it's going to work and ultimately that there is potential end game. And to be honest, at the time, there probably wasn't. Right?
But you made it. That's the point.
But like, it's like it really embracing that grind and like, even like you're going to get told no every day. We all do in our business. And it's the ability to really come back, be stood up and stay strong. And so I wanted to start Say How, which was a weekly basically podcast that gives full insights into my journey and lessons on my journey here as an entrepreneur, because I was that guy that didn't want to start or like was going through it. And I thought, there's probably a lot of other, I call them like closet entrepreneurs that like want to get started and want to ultimately go out and really put themselves out there. But maybe haven't taken that first step. And so I really wanted to start the podcast as a way to inspire young entrepreneurs and any entrepreneurs to, hey, embrace the grind, man. Let's go through it, and but ultimately take that first step and go for it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to check that out a little more. And describe your on-ice game in one sentence.
My on-ice game? Oh, shoot.
Trust me, I won't ask you about your off-ice game.
On-ice game, one sentence, clutch and flashy.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
There we go. What about your golf game?
Over par, but great team guy, great glue guy.
Okay. All right. Nice. Well, been awesome having you in.
Thanks,
really have enjoyed working with you guys. Think you're up to some awesome stuff.
Appreciate that.
Really enjoyed getting to know you personally,
of course,
and look forward to growing both those relationships. And
of course,
again, just want to thank Troy Crema for being here from Grata, and stay tuned for the next episode of Empowered Returns.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Empowered Returns. If you're a forward-thinking real estate investor or developer looking for actionable advice that will help you generate market-beating returns, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. I'm Mike DeMella with CHARLESGATE, and I'd love to connect on LinkedIn and further the conversation for any specific questions you may have. Thank you for listening.